But thank you guys for joining us. Super excited. So Black Men in White Coats. Last month, hopefully some of you guys joined us. We had Dr. Theodore and Yandi last month. It was great. We had a great turnout. And Theo dropped a lot of knowledge. He shared a lot of great stuff, told you about his journey to being a plastic surgeon. And tonight we got something great also. Most of you guys probably know Dr. Brian Williams. If you don't know him, just Google the name. He's all over the place. Dr. Williams is one of my good friends. He's a trauma surgeon here in the Dallas area. We met, I'll tell a story before we met, a few years ago, I guess now. So 2013, I started this Black Men in White Coats deal and did a couple of videos and then came to UT Southwestern for my fellowship. In the Southwestern, we decided to do some more Black Men in White Coats videos. And the person they picked, one of the two people they picked out in the whole institution was Dr. Williams. So obviously he was well thought of. He was highly respected at UT Southwestern. So that's why we filmed him for one of our first Black Men in White Coats videos. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But trauma surgeon, well acclaimed, very well known. And most of you guys are gonna know him from the Dallas police shooting of 2016 in that tragic and unfortunate situation where a lot of racial tension was going on. And unfortunately, there was a police shooting. Dr. Brian Williams was the trauma surgeon on call that night. So he was the one there right in the mix, taking care of all those police officers. So thank you for that, first of all. Being from Dallas, of course, we respect our police officers. But there was a much bigger thing was going on at that time, too, a lot of racial tension and things of that sort. We'll get into all that. If you guys have questions, there's a Q&A box. So just type your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to that later on. And we can actually see right here on our iPad. If somebody will do me a favor and throw a test question in there so we can make sure it's working, okay? And then we'll get things going. So I'll let Dr. Brian Williams say a quick hi and then we'll get to answering some questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. Appreciate you inviting me to do this. And thank you all for taking time out of your evening to come listen in on what we have to say.
All right, so the first thing, because we have a lot of people watching, we have some pre-meds, we have some med students, we have doctors, we have mothers, fathers, all sorts of people. Just give people an idea as to what being a trauma surgeon is like. So what is a trauma surgeon? What's a typical day in life of a trauma surgeon?
So a trauma surgeon is a doctor that specializes in taking care of patients with acute traumatic injuries. And this involves operative management and non-operative management. So you could probably think of a gunshot wound to the abdomen or a bad motor vehicle collision. If you come in injured and you're on the brink of death, trauma surgeon would be the one that would take you to the operating room to essentially save your life. But there's also another side of that, which is the non-operative side, where you are coordinating the care amongst many specialists, such as orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons that may be involved with your care, as well as in the intensive care unit, which is where people are on life support. So where the sickest patients in the hospital reside, that encompasses what my practice would involve. The part we don't talk about a lot is also, essentially I'm a general surgeon. So general surgeons do gallbladders and hernias, and that is actually the bulk of what my practice, clinical practice involved, was doing general surgery. But the part that I'm identified with is the part revolving around trauma, critical care, and emergency surgery.
Excellent. So how do you become a trauma surgeon? Because you've had a lot of training, right? To get there.
So I'll tell you that the quickest route to trauma surgery was not the route I took, okay? It would be 4 years of medical school. Then you do a 5-year residency in general surgery. Then you would do a 1-year fellowship to specialize in trauma and critical care. So that's what, 9 or 10 years? I did some extra time in there. So my residency was 5 years. I did another 2 years of research, of trauma research. So that made that 7 years. And when I finished, I did a 2-year fellowship in trauma and critical care. So that was 9 years plus the 4 medical school. So that was 13 years. But I mean, it sounds like a pretty onerous path, but it went by very quickly. And I look back, you blink, and I was a medical student, and next thing you know, I'm a trauma surgeon. And I will tell you, I feel I have the best job in the world. It's exciting and challenging, it's fun and rewarding beyond what you really explain in words.
Excellent, excellent. Where did you train in all those different places?
Right. So medical school was at the University of South Florida, which is in Tampa. I did my residency at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, which is a teaching hospital at Harvard Medical School. From there, I went to Atlanta to do my fellowship at Grady Hospital, which is part of Emory University. And then from there, I came to Dallas, Texas to work at UT Southwestern and Parkland Hospital.
Excellent. So world-class facilities, world-class hospitals, excellent training. That's great.
I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I had a lot of help on the way. This is not all me, okay?
Luck doesn't get you. Luck doesn't get you into all these great places. Okay.
Sure. I agree, but I mean, we're talking about like the importance of having mentors along the way that open doors and pointing me in the right direction. So yes, I did the work. I understand that. However, I don't want to discount the fact that there are people that helped me along the way. This was not a singular effort on my part.
Exactly. So since we're bringing up mentors, who are some of your great mentors? How did they really impact and influence your life? And again, how important was that for you to get to where you are?
So I begin with my family, my parents, who just let me believe that I could accomplish anything. And they're my biggest cheerleaders, not pushing me, but always letting me know that I had talent that can be realized if I put in the work. And outside my family, there were mentors along the way. And I need to start with being in the Air Force. I had a prior career for medicine. So I went to the Air Force Academy. I worked as an engineer, aeronautical engineer. And so that time period was very formative for me as far as learning how to be a leader and a follower, but also committing yourself to achieving a goal despite the challenges. And once you climb that mountain once, the amount of confidence you get from that just spill over to other aspects of my life. So when I went to medical school, my residency, my fellowship, those were all very important. But the switch from the Air Force to medicine, that was a pretty dramatic change. And there were certainly people that gave me a lot of advice and direction at that time. And the sad thing about it is, 20 years later, I wish I could thank them appropriately.
Maybe they're watching.
I mean, I would advise you as you move through your training and your career, is to really look around the people that are actually helping you along the way. They're doing it selflessly, expecting nothing in return. And a simple thank you will go a long way. And I hope someday I can find these people again and say, thanks for what they did for me.
What about sponsorship in there?
Yeah, I think sponsorship is key. Mentors will talk to you. Sponsors will talk about you. So the sponsor is the one that is advocating for you when you are not around. They're the ones that are telling other people that, yes, this is the person that you should look to for this position. So no matter how good you are, how well liked you are, how much good advice you receive from your mentors, without a sponsor, you could never break through to that next level. So don't discount the importance of having a sponsor. And secondly, closed mouths don't get fed. So you need to ask these, you need to approach them to get them, let them know what you want to do to get them on your side.
So the Air Force, you hear about a lot of career changes, and you hear people go from military to medicine. Right. A lot of times people will go to, they'll have signed up for the military early in the whole situation because, they want to get paid for it, things of that sort. But you have a legitimate career, aeronautical engineer. So what was the thing that said, hey, medicine's the right thing for me. Engineering is great, but medicine's what I want to do. Sure. How did you get the confidence to leave that?
So that switch from engineering to medicine, that occurred over a few years. My career in engineering, that was a very fun job. I liked it. I liked what I was doing, and I was on a pretty good career trajectory. But I did not switch it due to any dissatisfaction with what I was doing there. It was really just pull to medicine that, I fought for a while. Yeah. But in the end, I just said, this is what I should be doing. So I need to go ahead and just make this change. And the reason I resisted was I had a great career, I had a good career path, I did what I was doing. But in the end, I really wanted to have a job where I can combine my passion for social justice. And for me, the doctor epitomized that. And, you selflessly serve people who are strangers, you're caring for them. And for me, I felt like it really focused on the underserved population within our country, people that don't have access to care. So it just made sense to me. to go ahead and make that switch.
So how do you think, speaking about social justice, we titled this webinar, we called it medical justice, and we did that on purpose because obviously Dr. Williams is an expert physician, but he's also very well known across the country in justice and justices, things of that sort. So how do you feel, what's the climate of medicine and justice right now, within healthcare?
Right. So within medicine, my feeling is that every physician within medicine should have some aspect of social justice as part of their ethos for why they're doing medicine. And what social justice means that can vary between different people. And for me, it's merely about, if you have these gifts and these talents and this desire, you should be able to give back to society in some way. And we are in a position where strangers come tell us, very sensitive things about their health. They come to us in need, and they're counting on us to do the right thing for them, to set aside our own egos and desires to serve what's best for them. And for me, that is the definition of social justice in medicine.
And how would you take it outside of medicine? And how do you link those?
Right. So for how I'm linking them is early focus primarily on the racial disparities that are within medicine. They're also occurring throughout society. And this occurs across many, many institutions. And how I link them is taking my expertise and experience as a trauma surgeon for the past several years, working at a county hospital that serves underserved, what I've learned and experienced interacting with patients that have nowhere else to go, and the people whom I work with that have the same sort of dedication. And I'm going out and speaking about that experience and tying that to what's going on within the country at large. There is, it's not going away. There's issues of racism and violence and social inequities. They're not going away without us discussing them. They are here. And we see it, in Charlottesville and St. Louis, and now the violence in Las Vegas. Ignoring them is not going to have the situation go away. So I bring my experience as a physician, as a trauma surgeon, and share that with other people across all sorts of different backgrounds.
One of the things you said about it's not going away, we need to talk about it. I think we'll talk about the Dallas police shooting in a second, but I think one of the big things after the shooting that you kept on talking about, which really stuck out to me, was you kept on saying, we need to talk about this, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And at the time when you were saying it, it's kind of, I do a lot of things in diversity, so it really wasn't clicking to me. I was like, okay, yeah, we talk about it. But it took me a while just hearing you say it enough times to realize, no, wait, a lot of people don't get this. Like, we really need to talk about this. Right. So I'd like to hear you emphasize, why you kept on saying that, what it meant to you, and if you think people are talking about it more now than they were before.
Right, so this issue of speaking out, I really had to look, within myself, because I was a classic example of someone who wasn't speaking out about it. Yeah. And, as a Black man, I can't think of any period of my life where I have not had some negative interaction as a result of my race. So if anybody would have a reason to say something about it, I think I'll be one of those people, and I did it. So if I was unwilling to speak about it, I'm certainly going to understand why other people were not willing to speak about it either. And for me, that changed as a result of the shooting, because that night itself was a tragedy, and it really impacted me personally, because these were police officers that were shot. But for me, there was a bigger issue surrounding that led us to that point, I felt, which was, you put together, you had an African-American sniper who was targeting white police officers at a rally protesting police use of force. So that right there, that's already a volatile mix right there. And then we have this tragedy. And there's issues that were fed that I felt were not being discussed. So that was what I was thinking about. Yeah. And that's what, after that, I realized, Brian, not discussing this is not going to make this any better. This is just going to get worse. The violence is going to escalate, and something needs to be done.
So Now, since we're in the police room, let's just hop into that night. Well, so this will be really good. Kind of walk us through your whole night, not just because I think most of the time I see you on CNN and the news, they kind of ask you about, they're in the ER, trauma bay.
Right.
What was it like the whole night? So even before you got to work, like, well, because there was already racial tension going on before all this.
Right. So I mean, I talked not even about that night, but we can go through the year
Let's hear it. Yeah.
prior.
Let's hear it.
This was at a point in my life where I was really starting to do a lot of introspection and think about my identity as a Black man in this society and my identity as a trauma surgeon who routinely sees the end results of violence, particularly against people that look like me and talking to their families. So I was already looking towards myself and thinking about, what's my role in all this? Am I doing enough? Should I be doing more? The background of that is the repeated deaths of Black men in police custody. And then, some people realize, it's still like yesterday to me in many ways. The shooting was July 7th, but then July 6th, that was the day of the Lando Castile shooting in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Then July 5th was the Alton Sterling shooting in Baton Rouge. Yeah. So 5, 6, 7. So I was thinking about these things that were in the back of my mind, but I think you appreciate when you go to work, that goes away. Yes, you think about that goes away. And particularly when the patients came in the time of crisis, you just become hyper-focused on your job. So when I initially came in, it was a typical night. I don't just do trauma when we come in, we also do general surgery. So I was actually getting ready to do an appendectomy when this happened. And these officers came in pretty rapid succession. And we had a team of residents and nurses and emergency medicine physicians and students. They know what they're supposed to do. They go right to work. And for me specifically, I was just being hyper-focused on doing what I could to save these officers. Everything else was discussed, all the social issues, my introspection doesn't come into play. It's all about providing unbiased care in a moment of crisis. And that's all I was focused on. It was later when, we passed the critical phase, we had the fatalities, we're in a routine phase of care, that this really started to weigh on me. This is a very surreal night, but we had police officers that were protecting the hospital. They had AR-15s to provide security for the hospital. The chief of police came by, the mayor came by at one point. And this is a hospital, so it's not what you expect to see anytime in a hospital. So that was that. And then for me, at one point I talked to the families, one of the families of one of the victims. And when I left that room, I had to walk out by myself, and I ended up crying. I was on the floor, just bawling, crying. I can't explain why, and I haven't cried in decades. And this night, I cried twice that night, and I just could not understand how we got to this point now where we are now shooting police officers. And just say, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
Is it going to end? And at that moment, I really felt hopeless that there was nothing inside. It was going to get worse, and there's nothing we could do about it. And that was I was within the first few hours, and then after that, I went back to work, and I spent many, many hours just taking care of other patients, working with a team of nurses and other doctors and residents and students. We had other police officers that weren't fatally injured, and just did my job until about 3 o'clock in the morning when we had to escort the fatally wounded officers. And we had a ceremony for them. They left. And that's when I started crying again.
You had a ceremony for them there that night.
Well, the officers that were there, lined up to pay respects for them as they were transported, and they were led out and escorted by a motorcycle detail away from the hospital. So I watched that scene, and I actually when the officers lined up, I got in line with the officers. And I was a little bit hesitant about doing that because I was a civilian, they were police officers, you know, I was Black, most of them were white, and there was, at that point we knew, you know, about the Black shooter targeting white police officers, so that tension was in the air. But I wanted to really telegraph to them, like, you know, I'm hurting this with you, and I understand this is painful for me. I want you to know that I do, so I stand with you, which is why I did that. And
how was it received? Could you tell? Was there any?
There was so much anguish and grief. People were in their own worlds, and you know, I was in mine as well. So I don't know. No, nobody's gave me any, you know, looks or said anything to me that would suggest that they didn't want me to be there. So I feel that it was okay for me to be there. But again, there was so much emotion. They may not even notice I was there. You know, they may not even notice I was in line with them. And then after that, really, I just and here is the issue with doctors after adverse events that, and anybody in healthcare, nurses, something bad happens, you have to go right back to work. Right?
Oh yeah.
You don't get any downtime. It's like, okay, this happened, back to work.
More patients.
The next patient expects you to be there for them 100%. They don't want to hear about what just happened. So I went back to work, and the next several hours, my shift ended around 7 o'clock in the morning.
What was the climate? So I think that's a very good description in terms of how you were feeling. What was the climate around for everybody else? Like, and what was it like for you knowing that, hey, really? And so I did my training at UT Southwestern, so I worked in Parkland Hospital, so I know what Parkland's like. And Parkland can be intense, but Parkland is a big place, a lot of phenomenal doctors, some of the best doctors in the world. And at that one point in time, and everybody's watching TV, everybody's waiting to see what happens. And at one point in time, everybody's eyes are kind of on you, right? So, you know, everybody's thinking, hey, this Dr. Brian Williams guy, what's going to happen? Whether they knew it was you, whether they knew it was a Black guy or not, everybody still knew there's a doctor in Parkland taking care of these guys. So what was the climate like around you? Was that anxiety there? Did you feel that anxiety amongst everybody else?
No, I didn't feel that. These are extremely well-trained individuals, very professional, and yes, there's a lot of activity there and a lot more bodies that were present than normal, but I didn't get any sense that there was any increased level of anxiety. For sure, we understood that these were police officers, so that changed the level of, we just knew that they were police officers. That changed the level of our concern. But for me, I became, like I said, tunnel vision. I hyper-focused on what I needed to do, and which is, you know, caring for these officers, directing the team if necessary, and not allow myself to be distracted by what was going on, because they had their job to do.
Yeah.
And I just let them do it. It wasn't for me to check on them anymore, for them to check up on me.
Yeah. Okay, so that whole incident happened. It was horrible. You know, the whole country kind of grieved. How did your life change after that?
Well, there's professional, personal, spiritual changes. It was across the board.
Yeah, which one are we gonna start with? we're gonna hear them all. So which one are we gonna start with?
So,
by the way, let me say, so I think we should be broadcasting live on Facebook also. So if you haven't followed Black Men and White Coats on Facebook, please follow Black Men and White Coats on Facebook. And this is actually the first time I've ever tried to broadcast anything live on there. So go onto the page and click share so people know this is going on, so more people can hear Dr. Williams.
Right. So the night of the shooting, or the day after, I mean, I could feel the fissures starting to appear in, you know, Brian Williams.
Okay.
It was just unavoidable. But a lifetime of suppressing those types of feelings, and I'm still working to keep those at bay. And I went to work the next day, and the next day, the reaction had begun. Yeah. There was nothing I could do to stop that. As much as I would try to ignore that. Things really changed at the press conference, which was the 11th, so 4 days after the shooting. The call for this press conference, And initially, I did not plan to attend. I had no desire to relive this night, certainly on camera in front of anybody. And with my wife, we're communicating through text, and maybe there's a couple phone calls during that time. But in the end, it was she's like, you were going to go to that press conference. You have to be there. And the reason was like, you're the only person on the planet, she speaks in hyperbole, that has this perspective. The group of trauma surgeons, I was the only Black trauma surgeon. This, discuss the night and the racial tension that revolved around that night. And it's the night that I was there. Initially, I was supposed to work that night. One of my partners and I switched shifts, which is not unusual. We do this all the time. But I was there this night when I was not supposed to be there initially. And initially, she just basically, you at least have to be seen.
Yeah.
People need to at least see that there was this Black doctor there working to save these lives. And that's a statement about our society, that I had to be this presence there, or felt that I had to be this presence just to be seen. Now, what really happened was when I spoke, so I didn't plan to speak, but I spoke up, and the reason I spoke was because as the conference progressed, I really felt that they weren't talking about what I felt was an important issue. What led us there was the lack of open discussions about race in this country, the violence, my own issues regarding police encounters. And I was thinking, like, should I say anything or not? And what it came down to was two things. If I didn't say it, it was never going to be said. Nobody would say it. If I didn't say it now, it would never happen. And I was confident that once I said this, I would get fired. I just accepted that.
So it meant that much to you.
I did not get fired, but I just said, okay, I'm going to say this and I will be unemployed after this.
Yeah.
That did not happen. But what happened was that message resonated with a lot of people, and it just exploded. And there was this social media trending and media requests after that. And essentially, I just talked about my duality as a Black person in this country, trying to navigate multiple worlds and respecting police officers, but also having an inherent fear of police, which I'm working with. But I really wanted to people understand, like, look, this, as a doctor, I committed to providing unbiased care, irrespective of race, ethnicity, gender, all those things you can categorize people on. That's not what I'm about as a person or as a physician.
That's amazing. I remember when I think I talked to you that night afterwards, actually. I remember seeing it and my mind was blown, because it takes a lot of conviction to do something like that. And I'm sure you've experienced some things like this, and along in life in general, starting from school, elementary days,
Right.
You face certain things, right? You face certain things that have racial tension in them. I was talking to my mom the other day about the first time somebody ever called me the N-word. I was like a 9-year-old boy, and I can remember the whole thing very vividly. And how do you build that conviction to stand up to somebody like that,
Right.
when there's not very many people around you who look like you, and you don't know that support is going to be there?
Right.
There's one thing when, in my case, I was 9-year-old, soccer field, all that. It's a whole different thing when you're at work. This is your source of income. You have a family to take care of. Just building that conviction.
Right.
I know you described kind of what led to it, but the conviction. You just talk about just the importance of having conviction to stand up for what you believe is right.
Well, that moment came from decades of my own personal experience, and you can be called the N-word many ways without actually using the word the N-word. Mm-hmm. That's something you get used to. To get by. I and probably many people of color, you learn to compartmentalize these issues. You assimilate. You do not speak about it, especially if you're a professional, because that is not a way to advance your career, is to be outspoken about these sort of issues.
Do you think that's right or wrong?
I think right or wrong.
Right or wrong in the sense that, first of all, that we can't speak out about, and second of all, that if you're in that situation, do you think it's wrong that we don't speak out when we know it's wrong? Does that make sense? Is it getting tongue twisted?
Yeah, I think it's wrong. I think for me, I can, looking back, I can see how you pay a price if you speak up. You may pay a price if you speak up, but you definitely pay a price if you don't speak up. And I paid that price. And it was insidious, and you really don't even realize it's happening until you wake up one day, you don't even recognize yourself, and don't even respect yourself. Like you were trading your authenticity to be accepted by people who may not really care about you anyway. And why does it have to be? And I think to get past that, it requires, us to have these open, honest discussions and be able to talk about our true fears, our true biases and experiences, and listen without judgment. And then we can move, to action. I tell you, the young kids nowadays are done talking. They want action. They want to do something.
So how was your I'm thinking. So you talked with spiritual, physical. You said every
personal,
professional,
spiritual. When I spoke up, this changed my relationship with everybody, in my personal life and my professional life, because I was a person that was very private, did not speak. I went to work, did my job. I've been called an enigma by so many different people because they're just like, we don't know what you're thinking. What's going on with you? However, I never caused any trouble. I never, got in any trouble. So therefore, people just gotta let me be.
Yeah.
When I spoke up that day, I think that really threw a lot of people for a loop. People that knew me were surprised I was speaking up at all. And people that didn't know I felt this way were suddenly thinking like, wow, this is really a thing. And I'm comforted by the response I received from a lot of different people from many different backgrounds that either say, thank you for speaking up. I'm gonna have the courage to speak up now, or, I never thought about that way. You opened my eyes to something I didn't even know existed. And that's the overwhelming majority of it has been a positive response. Some's not been positive. But that's where the discussion begins, right? That's where we have to start bringing the two sides together. If we all agree there'd be no work to do.
Okay. So I want to kind of move away from that topic now. Thank you for explaining all
Sure.
that, because I think that's probably a little bit more detailed than I've heard it on TV before. You and I have talked, but that's a little bit more detailed than I've heard it on TV. So hopefully a lot of people got some good stuff out of that segment there. So Black men and white coats, obviously a big reason we do all this is because we want to help increase the number of Black men in the field of medicine. So going back to the one question, why are there so few Black men in the field of medicine?
In my opinion, there are many layers to that.
Okay.
And there's issues with education, disparities in education, disparities in housing, criminal justice system. There are all these entities that may seem like they're separated and siloed, but in fact they're all interrelated. And it doesn't just affect Black men in medicine. I think this affects Black men and people of color across all different types of industries and segments of society. But I think for medicine in particular, it's extremely important to have more Black men in this field, simply because it's better for the profession as a whole, but for the patients we serve. I don't know about you, but I've had so many experiences with patients that the fact that they have a Black male doctor is the impact it has on them is hard to explain. Like you can see their faces light up.
Yeah.
You can just the weight comes up their shoulder. Like this has changed their life before you even open your mouth. And then you take care of them, and you will be part of their family for life. I've been walking through the hospital, and what I remember recently was there was an elderly Black gentleman in a wheelchair, must have been in his 60s, maybe 70s, and he looked at me and said, "Man, you just made my day." And I said, "Why?" He said, you're black, you're wearing that white coat, you're looking sharp. I said, I know you're in charge. I said, well, I'm not in charge, but everything else I'll take. Yeah, but things like that happen over and over again. So you recognize that you need to put your ego aside. Stop worried about like what I'm doing, what I'm getting out of this. You represent something to a lot of other people. And the lack of black men in medicine, I think is hurting the profession as a whole and is a disservice to our patients that are out there.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. Right? You know, and I work at the VA, the Dallas VA, so I get it because there are a lot of older black vets there, and there's not very many people who look like me there. So as soon as you walk in, your eyes light up. So I'm with you on that. You made a point about you representing everybody else. Now, is that fair? What is that pressure like to represent? Because I'll tell people the same thing sometimes. I feel as though some people don't quite understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So what does that mean to you? I'm representing everybody else as a black man.
So that is a weight we carry, right? Black men can be seen as this collective unit, and the successes of one don't normally translate to everybody, but the mistakes and failures can be applied to the entire group. So you're always on your P's and Q's, and you never quite know if you're being watched because of that, right? You're always kind of second guessing yourself. Are these interactions a result because of me being black, or is it something else? And you can either succumb to that and be upset, or you can just accept that is what it means. That's what it is to exist in society as a black man. And there are, thousands of us, there's so many of us out there that are doing the hard work in the situation, and it takes a lot of mental and physical fortitude to continue to move forward despite these challenges. So I don't say, oh, poor me, why does it have to be this way? I wish we could come to a time in the society where that doesn't matter. We are not there yet. So that requires me to just keep moving forward, do my piece of my little world, and hopefully I can change minds of people with whom I interact.
Okay. Everybody's always talking about problems, and I talk about problems too. Solutions. How do we put things in action is, by the way, Dr. Williams wrote a great blog. Go to his website, brianwilliamsmd.com. Put a great blog about this yesterday. And again, highlighted the decreasing number of black men in field medicine. What are our action steps? How can we actually put things into motion to fix that problem?
Right.
Let me put the caveat with, in terms of diversity in the field of medicine, we've been working on this for decades, right? But we're not budgeting very much.
Right.
So what do we need to do different also?
Right.
Where's the innovation coming in at?
So diversity is just that's the first step, right? And diversity, that you can increase numbers and representation. But the real piece that will make a difference is having some equity throughout these institutions. Okay. So, and that's where sponsorship becomes very important. You and I can mentor, and we do, right? We mentor scores of people all the time. But until we get in a position where we can actually sponsor somebody and actually move them forward, there's only so far we can go. And it's easy to have the numbers there and have the faces, but if they're not in positions of influence, then I think the institution as a whole will suffer because you're going to lose talent. They're going to leave, or they're never really achieve their full potential. And it's not just an individual loss. This is a loss to the institution and then subsequently to the profession.
It's amazing. I agree completely. It has to be something different. Right? We have to do something different, and that's the right take on it. You have to get the people in the right, and they don't even have to be black men.
Right, exactly.
That's one of the things we do. So with the mentoring we do with diverse medicine and other things that we work on, people are always saying, "Oh, do I have to be a minority to mentor?" No. A few of my greatest mentors in med school were white.
And I would say that the key mentors and sponsors I had along my medical training, the ones that at these very specific points that made a huge difference where I went and how I progressed. Most of them were white. And 2 of them were female. So it doesn't have to be a black male. However, I think it's important for the black men to see us because you don't see what you can become. You never even think about that being a possibility.
Yeah, exactly. So sitting here, we're in my office.
Yeah.
That's why you guys see these things on the wall behind us. That's why these things are on the wall. Is because I don't necessarily want my kids to be doctors because those of you who are doctors know how difficult this route is, right? But I want my kids to see something that they can aspire to. They don't want to be doctors, but I want them to see something they can aspire to. So it's really important. Okay, so let's take some questions here. You guys go ahead and start dumping questions in the Q&A box. I've been chatting, I've been talking for a while. I want to make sure we get to some of you guys' questions. So the first question I see on here is, why did you leave Parkland?
So I actually was an employee of the university, UT Southwestern, and I was contracted out to work at Parkland to do my clinical care. So one reason I wanted to become a doctor and work at a medical center was I wanted to be a teacher, teaching students, teaching residents. I wanted to have this academic piece to my identity as a surgeon. And as the clinical part for me occurred at Parkland Hospital, which is a very busy trauma center. There was actually the reason why I came there. And it served the population of patients I wanted to treat, patients that were underinsured or uninsured, that just had diminished access to care. So I can't work at Parkland as a trauma surgeon unless I'm on faculty at Southwestern. So I left Southwestern. It came as a result of my experience after the shooting. And it's actually a decision I've been brewing prior to that. Actually, for a few years prior to that, I've been thinking about this. And the reason was, when I got to medicine, I had these certain ideals about what I wanted to do, who I wanted to serve, and what it meant for me to be a doctor. And many of you out there are probably getting with these same ideals. And I drifted off course from that. And I recognized that well before the shooting. The question is, what am I going to do about that? And I made a lot of excuses why I should not make the change. My experience with the shooting and what happened the year after that, it was very clear to me that I had to make a course correction. And what to do next, for me to figure that out and do the right thing and not make a rash decision, I had to remove myself so I could think clearly about what it is I was going to do. I pull myself out, map out a course, as opposed to running to something that may not serve help me get to where I want to be as far as having a career that combined my passion for medicine and for social justice.
Okay. I saw there was a question on Facebook from Zuhan. She asked if burnout played a role in that. And some of that is burnout, but I'm wondering if she also meant clinical burnout, so patient care.
No, I missed that actually. I've been asked that by some of my former colleagues, and I told them I miss being in the hospital at 2 a.m. on Friday, and that the pager goes off, there's a gunshot coming in.
I don't.
I miss the clinical work. I would not say I was burnt out on the clinical and patient care. I missed that, and just to be clear, I didn't leave medicine. Yeah, my career will still be in medicine. I will be operating again, but I'll be crafting the type of career that I feel will best combine all of my skills and experiences to serve my passion for medicine as well as social justice. And that will probably be something that people aren't used to seeing. And I understand it is hard for people to accept that because I'm a trauma surgeon, and that is a very powerful identity. And it's difficult for people to see me outside of that role. But I'm telling you, get used to it because it's coming, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think that's important. Doctor in general, people always say, "Oh, you're a doctor,"
right?
But you can do more than be a doctor, right?
Right.
That's what we're doing tonight.
Right.
And, you know, you do a lot of other things on the side too. You can do more than be a doctor. And the idea whenever you go into medicine, you want to go into medicine knowing what you want out of it,
Right.
the way you did, and you want to build that career. That's what you're doing. You pull yourself out of situations because you want to fulfill the mission you set for yourself.
Right.
Remember, always go back to your why. Why am I doing this?
Exactly.
That's exactly what you did.
Right.
Let's go to the next question. Let's see here. This is a good question. So this one's from Todd Campbell. Can you see here? So we multi here.
Oh, Regina Brown, friendly, good.
What did Regina ask? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Fast and average. That's a shout out from an Air Force Academy graduate. So I get it. I see you, Regina. Class of 91, bold goals.
Sorry, Regina. I was going to skip it because I'm not Air Force. I didn't know what that meant. So I just got to skip it over you. I'm sorry. Thankfully, Dr. Williams is here. So from Todd Campbell, how do we get our medical centers and institutions to see the value of diversity?
Well, I believe that the centers and institutions do see the value of diversity. I can't think of any center or major institution nowadays that doesn't have an office of diversity, that they're really committed to increase representation across all ethnic and racial backgrounds. The challenge is to get these institutions to see the value of equity.
Yeah.
So we bring these people in, but also move them through to positions of influence where they can contribute to the mission of the institution, as well as retain their knowledge to mentor and sponsor other people. And it's not just sponsoring other people of color, but other quality people that want to contribute to the mission of the institution. There should be no fear that you're going to have a place that's just full of black people running the place. That's not the goal. That's never been my goal, right? I just want to be able to mentor and sponsor people to further the mission of whatever institution where I work.
Yeah, that's important. And I always tell people say, oh, you do, all this diversity work that you guys do. I said, really, at the end of the day, I couldn't care less about diversity. I never quite verbalize the way you are, but what I've been saying in a much less eloquent way is exactly what you're saying.
Right.
I don't necessarily care about the diversity. I don't need 30 black people here. I need people who can get equity.
Right.
Because we're here for our patients, and more than our patients, we're here for society because there's socioeconomic implications of all this.
Right.
But I need people who understand the equity thing, and that's a big deal right there.
Well, on top of that, when I've been speaking, if I speak to older audiences, that kind of gets lost on them.
Yeah.
When you speak to the younger audiences, pre-meds, medical school, that is a group that's very socially aware, and they get it, and they want to make that actually happen.
Go millennials. Okay, let's take the next question here. From Brandon. Brandon says, do you have to have a certain sense of short-term memory when you're a trauma surgeon?
So short-term memory.
That actually means because you see so many crazy things, you want to forget about it.
Right. So I was master at compartmentalization before, and I'm certain that many people that work in an emergency situation, emergency rooms, this becomes part of their psyche, simply because you see a lot of tragedies that will come through, and you're expected to move on to the next patient when they come in. Excuse me. So you're forced to compartmentalize these issues. That's one, on the job. Two, I don't want to take this home to my family either. Yes, I chose this specialty and I knew what I was getting into, and I take pride in being able to comfort families and patients at some of the worst times of their lives. But to pretend that doesn't take an emotional toll on you is unfair. The key is integrating that into who you are, not letting yourself succumb to that and burning out from that.
Yeah. All right, so we have another Facebook question, and the question was about pop culture. How do you think pop culture affects the black man in today's society? What are the influences of pop culture, good, bad, etc.?
For pop culture, my personal opinion is that the majority of pop culture perpetuates negative images of black men. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people consume within our country, but also around the world. If you travel, that's also the perception of Black men. That's why I think it's key that we have some very important, influential, well-known figures that are Black men, like our previous president, that shows people that look, we are just like you. We want to contribute to society. We want to raise families. We want to have friends and socialize. It's not about taking for our own sake.
Yeah.
It's not about just fulfilling things or taking things to satisfy our own desire. It's about what we can contribute. And you don't have to be Black or white or Hispanic. Anybody can understand wanting to do the right thing.
All right, let's get through some more of these questions. So, anonymous post, where do you find the strength to face these racial disparities in the country?
Racism has just been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And I think that my experience is like many other people of color, you just learn to compartmentalize, you learn how to get by. And some of this is, explicit. You're taught this by your family, your friends, your peer group that are experiencing the same things. But a lot of this is also implicit. There's unspoken rules about how to behave in certain situations. And you recognize that, at least for me, I recognize that you can't challenge every single incident. You can be labeled as the angry Black man. You can be labeled as being too sensitive about race. But being silent also takes its toll. And for me, I had to wear this mask all the time, and it became easy and comfortable. And that mask, that came off after the shooting last year. And I'm walking a much different path now. And as a result, it changes the dynamic of all my relationships. Some disintegrate, some get enhanced, but at least I know I'm living a more authentic existence. I'm trying to live a more authentic existence. It takes work all the time. You don't just stop it overnight, but I'm trying to be more true to what my core values are. Yeah.
So, fifth question, how do you encourage young African-American men when seniors / patients / attendings don't acknowledge the appropriate? That's a very good question. So I suppose this is meaning more for individuals in a clinical setting. How do you encourage the young physicians in med school or residency to stay strong to get through the day whenever they're having to face a barrage of things negative against their race? Because you can imagine if you're a student and you're around them and your attending says something that's derogatory to your race,
right?
What do you do, and how do you encourage them through those situations?
Right. So that would definitely happen. It's happened to me at every phase of my medical career, even now when I was a faculty member. At certain stages, you're more vulnerable. Clearly, a medical student is much more vulnerable to retaliation than a faculty member in different ways. I don't suggest you just internalize that and let it go. You may have to approach that person later, and it's how you say it. So I heard you said this. Did you mean it this way or not? Just want to put some clarification because I felt this as a result of hearing that. And they can either explain it, they can dismiss it, but at least you let it be known that what was said was something that affected you negatively. You can never, obviously, I would say you never be combative or confrontational about that. You will never ever win that battle, but you can certainly make it known that what happened was something you want to address.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I would say kind of on this topic and then on the last question also, one of the things that is important for everybody in general, but specifically minorities, and within that, of course, this is about young Black men, is you have to understand your worth. You have to understand that you're capable. You don't need anybody else to validate you being wherever it is you are. And that's something which sometimes along the line I struggle with myself.
Right.
You have to realize, hey, I had good scores. My scores were, I had clinically I can perform. You have to realize, hey, I deserve to be here. This is my worth. And then whenever you can actually understand that, it's a lot easier to deal with some of these things.
Right.
It's a lot easier to just to deal with all these things that kind of come at you from the negative light.
Right.
Right. This is coming from, looks like a Dr. Sapp. Are there or were there any social triggers that made you momentarily adapt an imposter syndrome? Let me click on it because I can't see the whole thing here. How would you advise an aspiring minority student to deal with this?
Social triggers that make you adopt an imposter syndrome. Well, I'm sorry, if I don't answer this correctly, Dr. Sapp, I think what you're talking about is when people code switch, which is when, classically they talk about code switching with language. You may speak, Spanish when you're home with your family, but when you're without your friends and your work, you're speaking English, or you may assume a certain vernacular that is okay with your friends, but when you're at work, you speak the Queen's English, so you code switch that way. Or there's behavioral code switching, which is something I mastered, which was when I was in my professional circles, I knew how to behave and to talk so that I did not come across as threatening to my peers. The problem with that is it can come across as you can be perceived as being indifferent or even arrogant, when in reality it was just a survival mechanism.
I'm laughing because I know exactly what you mean.
It was just a survival mechanism. Yeah. So, and I've been living like that for so long. It was just natural and easy. That's all changed in the last year. That's just all gone by the wayside. I tend to call it out when I see it. I speak my truth about issues of workplace injustice or social injustice. But I feel that I'm always being professional and respectful of people around me when I do so. It's not about starting a battle. It's all about just recognizing the inherent worth of everybody we work with, interact with, and treat. I just want to provide the best possible care we can for our patients. And I'm better at doing that when I can be myself and not pretend to be something else. So if that's what you meant by imposter syndrome, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that is no longer a way I want to live my life.
Okay. So let's have a few more questions. I want to more coming in. Okay, so I'm going to respect the time. So in terms of questions, the last one's going to be that anonymous attending asking about the training, but we're going to go back to imposter syndrome. Somebody's adding clarification. It says Dr. Williams, imposter syndrome refers to questioning your ability or rights to be in medical school. Like if you're not supposed to be there. So kind of like what we just talked about a second ago about your worth. Do I deserve to be here?
Yeah. So I never had any question about if I deserved to be anywhere. And I go back to my days at the academy. That really set the course for my self-confidence as far as the rest of my training. The academy experience really instilled in me a belief in myself that not only that I could do something, but I deserved it. And I was also around just 1,000 other phenomenal men and women in my class. So this makes you raise your game, right? You walk in there thinking you're somebody, and you realize, oh no, I'm nobody. So after that point, I really feel like wherever I go, I deserve to be there. That was never a question for me.
Has a patient ever refused treatments from you due to your appearance? If so, how did you handle that?
Yes, I've been had patients refuse treatment for me many times, and sometimes they explicitly say they do not want a black doctor. Other times they speak in code, and you know exactly what they mean. And prior to my becoming an attending, I had always respected that request. I felt that, particularly when you're a medical student or a resident, you're a trainee. In my mind, the patient's wishes were mattered most. If that's what they wanted, I would respect that. And also, nobody around me that could have said no actually said that's not how it's going to happen. You're going to happen. It did happen one time in medical school, but I'll tell that story later. It's a very memorable moment that happened in medical school. Now, the trauma surgeon, things are different, okay? I don't have patients that schedule an appointment with me. If I'm working and you're in a car accident, you come in, you're pretty much, I'm what you get. So that's what you get. But as a result, I've had some patients that were, white supremacists. I've taken patients with this, swastikas on their bodies and had to talk to their families. It's always an interesting interaction. But it's probably never had any of them refuse care from me in that situation. The next day, things changed, but during that time, it's all good. But when I was a medical student, I was patient refused care for me. And the resident, there was this short white woman, she said, absolutely not. He's a medical student, he's gonna learn, he gets to stay. And at the time this happened, I was just thrown. That never happened, I was shocked, I was speechless. And I wish now I could find her and say thank you, because it really made an impression on me about having the courage to speak up and do what's right for someone that feels they can't speak up for themselves.
Yeah, I had the same exact, sorry. I had the same exact experience as a medical student, but mine was an older patient, but an attending came to my defense and actually chastised the patient the same way right in front of me, and that really means a lot. That gives you a lot of confidence. Right. Okay, so what is your definition of diverse? So we have a few questions up, so just kind of let's rapid fire some of these here. What is your definition of diversity?
Well, I hope we can expand what, to me, diversity, that in and of itself is just a numbers game. It's just, you increase the numbers of minorities at whatever institution that you are working, whether it's medical centers or business. I like to move past this, talking about diversity, and start really talking about equity, where you have these qualified, committed minorities, but they need to get sponsorship and get moved into positions where they can really contribute to the mission of these institutions. And when that happens, like it's been shown that institutions and companies do better when there's equity across racial lines.
That's proven. It's there for them.
Yeah, it's not just us begging for more positions. Like there's data that shows that institutions do better when that happens.
Okay. Next question. Oh, shout out to Richard, one of my buddies, Richard. Apparently he's tuning in. Next question, Bailey Loving. And Bailey Loving also did a Black Men in White Clothes video, University of Colorado. So Bailey, thank you for watching.
I think I'm coming up to talk to you guys whenever we can schedule it. You send me an email.
Perfect. And we'll give you guys a speaker information at the end of this because Dr. Williams does a lot of speaking. So we want to make sure you guys can get out there. So Bailey's asking if you could go back in time and talk to the shooter before he went out to the rooftop that evening, what would you tell him? Bailey, wow. Has anybody ever asked you that question?
Nobody has ever asked me that question.
Wow, good question.
It's a great question. If I could go, and the shooter's name is Micah Johnson. So first, I think we need to acknowledge that he was somebody's son, friend. He was a person. I would say, Micah, I understand how you feel because I get it. I get the frustration of being Black in this society. I get the frustration of having to watch more videos of Black men dying in police custody. And this is based on what they said that he was shooting the police officer because of that. Okay, so I'm basing my response just purely on what I've heard in the media, which could or can be true. I would say I get it, but Violence is not the answer. Violence begets violence.
Yes.
It's just going to escalate. We need to take a step back and find another way to address this.
Okay, excellent. Good question, Bailey. Next question from Milan. Hey, Milan, thanks for tuning in. Milan's a superstar pre-med on Pre-Med Star. He's asking, in order for us to grow in our own cultural competence and help others engage in dialogue, what is the single most important thing for us to do as pre-medical/medical students?
So as pre-medical students of color, Milan?
I think he's talking about it in general.
Okay. So I think it's a spectrum of how we're moving forward in society in regards to race relations. And first with diversity, just increasing the pipeline, getting more people in. Now we're talking about cultural competence, which is understanding where the other person is coming from, walking in their shoes, which is a very important step. I think we should always be pushing for equity. It's not just about getting in. It's not just about being included. It is not just about understanding, but also like we need to work together to achieve a common goal as equals. It's not about you giving up something to me taking it. It's about us working together as equals for a common goal. And the military has been great for showing that when you have people working together as equals of different racial backgrounds, these issues of racism are diminished significantly. You know, the incident at the academy recently, notwithstanding, the military as a whole has been a really good example of how you can eradicate issues of racism that negatively impact our organizations. Not perfect, but it's someplace that you can look.
Yeah, something to start. Zuhan is telling you need to come to Rush and Chicago and talk to them also. I'll tell you guys again at the end of this, but we do have Black Men and White Coats speakers, and Dr. Williams is one of those. So if you go to blackmenandwhitecoats.org, on the top right corner, if you're facing the computer, there's a tab that says Speakers Bureau. You can request Dr. Williams to come wherever you're at. Just go to blackmenandwhitecoats.org, Speakers Bureau, and fill out the form. Very quick form to fill out. Next question from Zamdu. For others like myself who are early in our careers, any advice on how to balance flying under the radar versus being vocal when injustice arises?
So my advice to you early in your career is to first really understand what your core values are in regards to racial injustice. And then you need to live out those values in your work, in your personal life. Trying to separate those two will, I think, be unsuccessful, speaking from my own experience. Just be true to what you really believe and don't be afraid to own how you feel. This does not mean you have to pick every single battle and make it a confrontation, but it certainly means you don't let issues of racial injustice go unaccounted or acknowledged when they happen.
With your training in trauma surgery, what else can you do besides working in the hospital?
There was a real question, what can I not do besides working on? There are a lot of, again, I mentioned it, I know it's difficult to see me as something other than a trauma surgeon, because that, you hear that, you immediately have a picture of what that means. But my medical training encompassed 13 years of training to become a trauma surgeon. A trauma surgeon that's what I do. It is not completely define who I am as a doctor. There are many facets to what I can do in healthcare. And all my training and my experiences as a trauma surgeon are key to me achieving that next goal. It was important because it put me in proximity to the very people I want to serve. As a surgeon, I can treat hundreds of people a year, maybe. If I take that experience and put it into another realm of healthcare, it can be thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Depends on how I leverage that. So I don't feel that anything I've done at this point is wasted. And I certainly, I said I know I'll be doing trauma surgery again in some capacity. It's just the way I was doing it before, that is not going to happen. It'll be in a much different capacity.
Okay, so there. So William's asking about social justice at Parkland House. We don't need to necessarily specifically, we don't need to make it institution specific, but social justice in general academic medical centers. What do you think?
So,
is there a movement towards improving that?
So I've been speaking the past year. I've spoken at many medical centers, and when I go, I usually get to spend some time with the medical students or pre-medical students, and I will say that short answer to that is yes, there is movement because these students are very socially aware. This is important to them as far as their roles as physicians. Now, medical centers are generally things move at a glacial pace when it comes to change. So the pipeline coming in, I think we're going to push that forward whether they want to or not. My friends said that most want to, they just don't know how to do that. But I'm confident that will change, but it'll be a while.
Okay, Southwestern specifically, there's a lot of work to be done for it. Southwestern definitely a lot of diversity offices and programs and such. Do you participate in programs such as Doctors Without Borders? If so, how has it benefited you as I think it's supposed to be as a physician?
Right. No, I have not done any medical missions, and the reason I've not done so is I've really been there are so many individuals within the United States that don't have access to healthcare. I've always felt very committed to helping people here at home. Not that there are any less important outside the country. It's just that it's much easier for me to do that here in the United States.
Let me interject. So Parkland, where you did your trauma, Parkland was the busiest single center emergency department in the whole country.
Right.
So there's plenty of patients here.
Right. And where I did my fellowship with a similar type of patient population. So my day-to-day job was doing just that. Yeah. So I never felt the need to do a mission to go somewhere else to do that. I have thought about it many times, but I've never done it. But actually right now I'm considering doing it again. One of my friends is really pressing me to come join them on a mission. And that may happen.
Excellent. What books have you read that made an impression on you?
So first is Medical Apartheid, which it talks about the medical experimentation that was done on Blacks in this country. And you may know about Tuskegee. I'll tell you, Tuskegee is merely the tip of the iceberg. It's disheartening and disturbing to see what has been done to advance medical care in this country. And a lot of it has been done on unsuspecting or unwilling Black research subjects. So that book made a tremendous impression upon me. Another book that I read that made an impression on me was a book called Blind Spot. And this was written by a sociologist. I think she's from The Ohio State University. If I got that wrong, I apologize. But anyway, this book talks about our own unconscious biases and explains how, outwardly you may feel that you treat everybody the same, but your unconscious biases actually will influence how you treat people, and particularly when it comes to issues of race. And that book was helpful to me because not everybody is racist. We live in a racialized society. Not everyone has racist intent. And if you understand what's in this book, it will enlighten you to why that is. So those are two books I recently read. I think that had a great impact on me. The other big book I read, one of my all-time favorites, is 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm a science fiction fan. I'm a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke.
I would say my favorite, my favorite book is Bible, but my second favorite book is Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington.
Right.
Phenomenal book. All right, so Todd Kemp, you're gonna be the last question, and I'm gonna skip around here. So let's go to Melissa Cornett. So Melissa, thank you. This is great. This is what we want. This is why we film Black Men in White Coats. So Melissa says, my 9-year-old son is watching, who also aspires to become a trauma surgeon. Any words of encouragement for him? But that's why we filmed this. So we filmed these so you guys can have your kids watch and let your kids see Black doctors in white coats. So thank you for doing that. Tell your friends, bring your kids. That's exactly what we want. So words of encouragement for a 9-year-old boy who wants to be a trauma surgeon like you.
Sure, I'll tell you, good choice. Trauma surgery is the most exciting field of medicine, hands down.
It's the second most exciting field of medicine. It's critical care ICU.
So important is doing well in school. So don't let your studies sacrifice. And I know that you're third, fourth grade right now. It begins now. Don't forget to start later. I'm going to begin this later. You're going to set those good habits now. They're going to serve you well as you go through your schooling. When you get to college, what I learned from Curtis from his Black and White Coats video, when he said when your friends are going out to the parties, you need to be studying. So just be prepared to do a lot of work between now and then. When it's all over, I tell you, it is worth it. It is so worth it because you will be in a profession that has rewards that's hard to quantify and articulate, but it is well worth it, and you will be challenged and have fun for the rest of your life.
Keep on doing things like this. Keep on watching our stuff, of course, but get out there, get in the community, try to get whatever exposures, experiences you can get. So it's definitely worth it. Thank you for watching. So let's take these last two questions here. How do you deal with constantly having to play the role model? You stated this is a role you want to play. However, let's make it bigger. However, how do you deal with the constant pressure of being a Black role model position?
I've accepted that and I've embraced that. And before I felt that, unconsciously I was kind of fighting that. Like, why do I have to do this? It shouldn't matter. Now I've accepted that this is the truth of my existence. However, I now embrace it and I feel that it is a gift and an honor and not a burden. And I hope that it will inspire others, not just young Black men, but anyone to really design their life and their career to integrate what their personal ethos is as far as how they want to contribute to society, and not have to serve an agenda that does not feed into that. So I no longer see this as a burden. I embrace it and I actually enjoy it immensely.
Yeah, life is short. You have to do what makes you happy and what you feel is important. And the last question we'll take for the night. It's the right question to end with. How do you get more African Americans to choose a career in medicine?
Critically important is to see that there are African Americans in medicine and see that we enjoy what we're doing and see that we're making a contribution to society. And also that, by us doing what we're doing, we are in a way, breaking down the barriers about negative perceptions that people may have about Black Americans. So just seeing that will certainly inspire other people coming behind us to go into medicine. And then second, they go hand in hand is mentorship and sponsorship. Just giving them the right direction and giving them the help along the way to get into college, medical school, and residency, and beyond. it's our responsibility to reach back and pull them up, right?
Exactly.
You can't just say, okay, I'm here, I'm good, and turn back and say good luck. We have an obligation to help others behind us. And not just people of color, but anyone who aspires to have a career in medicine.
Great. 100%. All right, wrap things up here. Let's do some plugs, okay? So
Okay.
what are your social handles, your Twitter, all that stuff? How can they,
All right, I'm on Twitter at BHWilliamsMD. I'm on LinkedIn, Brian Williams MD. I have a blog at brianwilliamsmd.com. I am not yet on Facebook. Someday I may dip my toes in the water there, but right now this is enough to kind of manage between all that. I'm also on Google Plus as well. Google Plus as well. So, but I'm most active on my blog and then Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are the 3 places best to get me.
All right. And of course, my plug, so blackmenandwhitecoats.org. Make sure you go there. Make sure you check out the Speakers Bureau. You can get Dr. Williams there. Come out to wherever you're at. Will you go to Antarctica? Will you go to Africa?
I'll go anywhere.
Right. So make sure you get on there. If you're pre-medical students, 18 or older, premedstar.com. You need to be on PreMedStar. It's an online community for pre-medical students. All sorts of great resources for you guys on premedstar.com. It's free. And Diverse Medicine, we give mentors. So if you're looking for a mentor, Diverse Medicine will set you up with a physician or medical student mentor. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. So we'll do one of these again. Hopefully we'll get one next month. We haven't set it up yet, but if you guys have any suggestions who you want to see, shoot me an email, send us a message, and we would love to have those individuals come.